Place your thumb on the scanner, please.
My thumb.
Yes, just a quick biometric confirmation.
No, nothing.
Go ahead.
Biometric confirmation.
Is something wrong?
Place your thumb on the scanner, please. Joy froze. My thumb? She asked, forcing a small smile. Yes, the officer replied calmly. Just a quick biometric confirmation. Joy slowly lifted her hand. Is something wrong? The officer asked. No, nothing, Joy said quickly. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was sure everyone in the room could hear it. Go ahead, the officer repeated. Joy placed her thumb on the small glass scanner. A soft beep echoed in the quiet office. The computer screen blinked. The twin sisters looked exactly alike. Same height, same dark skin, same bright eyes. Even their voices sounded almost the same. But their lives were very different. One sister seemed to carry the light of success wherever she went. The other felt like she was always standing in the shadow. And the successful one was named Elizabeth. The other sister was Joy. Growing up, people rarely told them apart. Teachers would often pause and say, "Wait, which one are you again?" But when it came to schoolwork, the difference became very clear. Elizabeth was brilliant. She studied hard. She asked smart questions in class. She always finished her assignments early. Her notebooks were neat. Her ideas were sharp. Teachers admired her. Friends trusted her. Even neighbors often said, "That girl will go far in life." Joy heard those words many times, but they were never said about her. Joy was not lazy. She tried. She studied. But things never seemed to go as smoothly for her. Her grades were average. Her teachers rarely noticed her, and slowly a quiet feeling started growing in her heart. And a feeling she did not talk about, a feeling that slowly turned into something darker. Jealousy. At first, Joy tried to ignore it. She clapped when Elizabeth won school awards. She smiled when relatives praised her sister. She even hugged Elizabeth when she graduated with top honors from the university. But inside, something was breaking, because every success Elizabeth achieved felt like another reminder of what Joy was not. One hot afternoon, everything changed. Elizabeth rushed into the house holding a large white envelope. Her face was glowing with excitement. "Joy, Mama, you won't believe this," she shouted. Joy was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. She looked up slowly. "What happened?" she asked. Elizabeth opened the envelope with trembling hands. "Ain't I got the job?" Their mother looked up from the kitchen. "What job?" Elizabeth laughed happily. "The international research organization I applied to in Lagos." Their mother dropped the spoon she was holding. "That big foreign company?" "Yes," Elizabeth said. "They accepted me." Their mother rushed out of the kitchen and hugged her tightly. "My daughter, I knew it." Joy forced a smile. "That's nice," she said quietly, but Elizabeth was too excited to notice the cold tone. "They said only 3 people in the whole country were selected," Elizabeth continued. "The interview was very competitive." Their mother looked proud. "You deserve it." Joy stayed silent. Elizabeth opened the envelope wider. "They said the final employment confirmation will happen next week." "In Lagos?" "Yes. They will verify documents and sign contracts." Their mother smiled. "Our family is blessed." Joy stared at the envelope. That job, that life, that future, everything she had ever wanted. And it was given to Elizabeth. Again. That night, Joy could not sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Elizabeth slept peacefully on the other side of the room. Joy turned to look at her twin. They looked exactly the same face, same eyes, same height. Even their voices sounded alike. Joy sat up slowly. A thought appeared in her mind, a dangerous thought. "What if," she whispered to herself, "what if I go instead?" Her heart started beating faster. The more she thought about it, the more possible it seemed. They were identical twins. No one in Lagos knew them personally. If she appeared with the documents, if she spoke confidently, who would know the difference? Joy slowly stood up. She walked to the table where Elizabeth had left the envelope. She opened it carefully. Inside were the job documents, offer letter, verification form, appointment schedule. Joy read the date again. Final confirmation meeting. Next Tuesday. Joy felt something shift inside her. This was her chance, the life she had always wanted, and the door was wide open. All she had to do was walk through it, even if that meant stepping into her sister's life. Over the next few days, Joy watched Elizabeth carefully. She studied the way she spoke, the way she signed her name, the way she answered calls. She even practiced Elizabeth's signature quietly in her notebook. Elizabeth noticed nothing. She was too busy preparing for the new job. Meanwhile, Joy was preparing for something very different. The night before the trip to Lagos, Elizabeth packed her documents neatly in a blue folder. Joy watched silently. "You should come visit me in Lagos when I start working," Elizabeth said happily. Joy forced a smile. Maybe. But deep down, Joy already knew something Elizabeth didn't, because early the next morning, Elizabeth would wake up with a terrible headache and decide not to travel that day. Tuesday morning arrived. Elizabeth stayed home feeling weak. Joy, however, dressed carefully, professional clothes, neat hair, confidence in her voice. She picked up the blue folder. "I will help you deliver the documents," Joy said casually. Elizabeth nodded weakly. "Thank you." Joy left the house. Her heart was racing the entire journey to Lagos, but when she arrived at the modern glass office building, no one suspected anything. She introduced herself. "Good morning, I am Elizabeth." The receptionist smiled. "Welcome?" Joy felt a thrill. It was working. She sat in the waiting area with other new employees. Forms were signed, documents were checked, everything looked perfect. Joy could hardly believe it. She had done it. She had taken the life that was meant for her sister. Finally, for once in her life, Joy was the successful one. But just as the final documents were being prepared, a man in a suit walked into the room. "Before we complete the process," he said, we need one last step." Joy smiled confidently. "What step?" He pointed to a small device on the table. "Biometric verification. Just place your thumb on the scanner." Joy felt her stomach drop, but it was too late to turn back, so she lifted her hand slowly and placed her thumb on the scanner. The machine beeped. The computer screen blinked. "Processing. Processing." Then suddenly, the officer looked up sharply. His eyes narrowed, and the room fell silent, because the screen had just revealed something no one expected, especially Joy, and what appeared on that screen was about to change both sisters' lives forever. The officer stared at the computer screen. Then he looked at Joy. Then back at the screen again. The smile that had been on his face earlier was gone. "Excuse me," he said slowly. Joy felt a cold wave rush through her body. "Yes," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The officer leaned closer to the monitor. "Can you please place your thumb on the scanner again?" Joy swallowed. "Again?" "Yes," he said calmly. "Sometimes the machine needs a second reading." Joy forced a small laugh. "Oh, okay." But inside, panic was beginning to grow. Her hand felt suddenly heavy. Her fingers trembled as she lifted them again. She placed her thumb back on the glass scanner. Beep. The machine scanned again. "Processing. Processing." The officer frowned. Joy could see the reflection of the screen in his glasses. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He pressed a few keys on the keyboard. Then he called softly to a woman sitting across the room. "Amaka, can you come here for a moment?" Joy's heart jumped. The woman walked over and looked at the screen. "What's the issue?" she asked. The officer pointed. "This fingerprint doesn't match the one submitted during the online registration." Joy's breath stopped. The woman leaned closer to the screen. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I ran the scan twice." She studied the data carefully. Then she slowly looked at Joy. "Miss Elizabeth," she said. "Yes?" Joy answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you complete the biometric registration yourself when you applied for this job?" Joy nodded quickly. Yes, of course." The woman looked back at the screen again. "That's strange." Joy forced a smile. "Maybe the machine made a mistake." The officer shook his head. "This system rarely makes mistakes." Joy felt the air in the room growing heavier. Around the waiting area, the other applicants had begun to notice something was happening. Some of them were watching quietly. Joy's mind was racing. What if they call Elizabeth? What if they check deeper records? What if they find out everything? The woman spoke again. "Let's run one more check." Joy's chest tightened. "One more?" "Yes." She typed something into the computer. Then she looked up again. "Please confirm your full name." Joy answered immediately. "Elizabeth." "Your full name?" the woman repeated. Joy hesitated for half a second. Then she said it. "Elizabeth Okafor." The officer typed the name again. More data appeared on the screen. Joy tried not to look, but she could feel it. Something was unfolding, something dangerous. The woman leaned closer to the monitor, then her eyes widened slightly. "Ah, that's interesting," she said quietly. Joy's stomach dropped. "What is it?" the officer asked. The woman pointed at the screen. "This fingerprint is registered to a different person." Joy felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "A different person?" the officer asked. "Yes?" "Who?" The woman read the name slowly. "Joy Okafor." Joy felt the blood drain from her face. For a moment, the room felt silent. Too silent. The officer slowly turned toward her. "Miss Elizabeth?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were no longer friendly. "Do you know someone named Joy Okafor?" Joy's mouth went dry. "Joy?" she repeated. "Yes." Joy's brain screamed for an answer. Maybe it's a system error," she said quickly, but the officer's expression had changed. He looked serious now. This database connects directly with national identity records. He turned the screen slightly so the woman beside him could see better. The fingerprint belongs to Joy Okafor. The woman crossed her arms slowly. And you just told us your name is Elizabeth. Joy's heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The officer spoke again. Miss. He paused. What is your real name? Joy opened her mouth, but no words came out. Around the waiting room, people had stopped pretending not to watch. Everyone was staring now. The officer stood up slowly. I think we need to step into a private office. Joy's legs felt weak. Her mind was spinning. Everything was falling apart. The job, the lies, the plan, all of it. But what terrified her most was that they had not even called Elizabeth yet. Yeah, if they did, everything would be exposed. The officer gestured toward the hallway. Please come with me. Joy slowly stood up. Her hands were shaking. As she followed them down the quiet corridor, she felt something heavy settling inside her chest. Because for the first time since she began the plan, she realized something terrible. This was no longer just about a stolen job. This had become something much bigger, something serious, something that could destroy her life. The officer opened the door to a small office. Please sit. Joy lowered herself into the chair. The woman sat across from her. The officer closed the door. Then he spoke quietly. Miss. He paused again. Whoever you really are. Joy stared at the table, her chest rising and falling quickly. The officer continued. You need to tell us the truth. The room felt painfully silent. Joy's hands tightened together. She knew the moment had come, the moment she had feared. But before she could say anything, the office phone suddenly rang. The officer picked it up. Yes? He listened. Then his eyes slowly widened. He looked at Joy again and said something that made her heart stop. Sir, the real Elizabeth Okafor is on the line. Joy felt the room spin, because the truth she had tried so hard to hide was about to walk straight through the door, and the next moment would decide the fate of both sisters. The officer held the phone tightly. Yes, please send her in, he said. Joy felt her stomach twist. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst out of her chest. The real Elizabeth was coming, and everything Joy had tried to hide was about to be revealed. The officer slowly placed the phone back on the desk. Then he looked directly at Joy. She is already in the building, he said calmly. Joy's throat felt dry. In the building, she whispered. The woman sitting beside the officer nodded. She said she received a call from us this morning to confirm some documents. Joy felt the blood drain from her face. She had forgotten something important. When Elizabeth first applied for the job, the organization had saved her phone number. Joy had not changed it, which meant that when the fingerprint mismatch appeared, the system automatically contacted the real applicant. Elizabeth. The officer folded his hands on the table. I think we will understand everything soon. Joy stared at the floor. Her mind was racing. And what will Elizabeth say? Will she expose me? Will she hate me forever? Outside the office, footsteps could be heard in the hallway. Then the door opened. Joy slowly lifted her head, and there she was. Elizabeth, her identical twin sister. She stood at the door, breathing slightly fast as if she had hurried to get there. Her eyes scanned the room. First the officer, then the woman, then finally, Joy. For a moment Elizabeth said nothing. Her face slowly changed from confusion to shock. Joy. Joy felt her heart sink. Elizabeth stepped forward slowly. What are you doing here? The officer gestured politely. Miss Elizabeth Okafor? Yes, Elizabeth replied. Please come in. Elizabeth entered the office, but her eyes never left Joy. What is going on? She asked. The officer spoke carefully. There seems to be a misunderstanding regarding your employment verification. Elizabeth frowned. My employment? Yes. The officer turned the monitor toward her. Earlier today, someone came to finalize the job confirmation under your name. Elizabeth looked at the screen. Then she slowly turned to Joy again, and suddenly everything made sense. Her voice became quiet. Joy could not look at her. You came here pretending to be me. The words hung heavily in the room. Joy's hands trembled. Elizabeth looked heartbroken. Joy, tell me it's not true. Joy closed her eyes, but the truth was already clear. The officer spoke again. The fingerprint scan identified her as Joy Okafor. Elizabeth took a slow breath. For a moment it looked like she might cry. Why? She asked softly. Joy finally looked up. Tears had already begun forming in her eyes. I just wanted one chance, she whispered. Elizabeth shook her head slowly. One chance to do what? Joy's voice cracked. To live the life you always had. The room was silent. Elizabeth stared at her sister. "You think my life is easy?" she asked quietly. Joy wiped her tears. "Everyone admires you. You always succeed. You get every opportunity." Elizabeth looked stunned. "You never told me you felt this way." Joy laughed bitterly. "How could I? Every time people praised you, they looked at me like I was invisible." Elizabeth's face softened slightly, but the officer cleared his throat gently. "I understand this is a family matter," he said, "but impersonating someone during employment verification is a serious issue." Joy felt a chill run through her body. "A serious issue." Those words sounded heavy, too heavy. Elizabeth turned to the officer quickly. "Please," she said, "she made a mistake." The officer nodded. "Yes, but we still need to understand what happened." Elizabeth looked back at Joy. "Did you plan this from the beginning?" Joy hesitated, then she slowly nodded. Elizabeth closed her eyes for a moment. Pain crossed her face. "I trusted you," she whispered. Joy could not stop the tears now. "I'm sorry," but the officer continued. "Miss Joy, you must understand something." Joy looked up slowly. "This organization works with international partners. Our recruitment process must follow strict rules." Joy's heart sank. The woman beside him added gently, "Identity fraud can lead to serious consequences." Joy felt the room spinning again. Consequences. And her plan had gone far beyond what she imagined. Elizabeth suddenly spoke again. "Please," she said softly, "can we resolve this without involving authorities?" The officer looked thoughtful. "That depends." "On what?" Elizabeth asked. "On whether this was simply a misunderstanding." He paused. "Or a deliberate attempt to deceive the organization." Joy felt every eye in the room on her. The truth was sitting right there, heavy, unavoidable. Elizabeth reached for Joy's hand. "Tell them the truth," she said quietly. Joy looked at her sister, then at the officer, then at the woman beside him. Her voice trembled. "Yes, it was deliberate." The room went silent again. Elizabeth closed her eyes slowly. The officer leaned back in his chair. "Thank you for your honesty." But his expression remained serious. "Tan, however—" He paused. "This situation is not over." Joy's chest tightened, because something in the officer's tone suggested that the worst part of the story had not even begun yet. Then he turned the monitor again. "Miss Elizabeth," he said, "there is another issue you need to see." Elizabeth looked confused. "What issue?" The officer pointed at the screen. Elizabeth leaned closer, then her eyes widened in shock. "What?" Joy's heart jumped. "What is it?" she asked. But Elizabeth did not answer. She simply stared at the screen and slowly whispered something that made the entire room freeze. "That's impossible." Because the data on the computer was now showing something else. Something no one expected. Something that meant the problem in this room was not only about Joy's deception, and it was about something much bigger, and whatever it was about to turn both sisters' lives upside down. Elizabeth kept staring at the computer screen. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembled. That can't be right," she whispered. Joy felt a cold chill move down her spine. "What is it?" she asked nervously. But Elizabeth did not answer immediately. The officer slowly turned the screen so both sisters could see. "Please take a closer look," he said. Joy leaned forward. Numbers and information were displayed across the monitor. Applicant verification, identity records, biometric data, but one line stood out clearly. "Identity duplication detected." Joy frowned. "What does that mean?" The officer spoke calmly. "It means that two people in our system have been verified using the same biological family record." Elizabeth blinked in confusion. "Biological family record?" "Yes." The woman beside the officer continued the explanation. "When applicants apply to our organization, our international verification system checks their national identity data." Joy felt uneasy. "Okay." The woman pointed to another line on the screen. "This data connects to birth records." Joy's stomach tightened. "Birth records?" Elizabeth leaned closer to the monitor. "But we are twins," she said. "That's normal." The officer nodded slowly. "Yes, identical twins often share similar data patterns. But this situation is different." Joy's chest felt heavy. "What do you mean different?" The officer clicked another tab on the screen. And more information appeared, more records, more details. Elizabeth gasped softly. "No." Joy looked at her. "What is it?" Elizabeth slowly pointed to a line of text. Joy read it. Then her entire body went still. "Birth registration conflict detected." Joy blinked. "What does that mean?" The officer leaned forward. "It means the hospital record connected to this identity shows something unusual." Elizabeth's voice trembled. "Unusual how?" The officer hesitated, then he said something none of them expected. The system shows that only one female child was registered for that birth date. Joy felt her mind go blank. Only one? Elizabeth shook her head. That's impossible. We are twins. Yes, Joy said quickly. We were born the same day. The officer nodded slowly. I understand. But the hospital record from 30 years ago shows something different. Joy's heart was racing again. What does it show? The officer turned the monitor fully toward them. Elizabeth leaned forward again. Then she read the document quietly. Joy watched her sister's face change. Confusion, shock, disbelief. Then Elizabeth whispered slowly, It says. Her voice almost broke. It says my mother gave birth to one baby girl. Joy's chest tightened. That must be wrong. Elizabeth looked at her slowly. But this is the hospital record. Joy shook her head quickly. No, our mother always said we were twins. The officer nodded. That may still be true. But the official birth document does not show that. Joy's thoughts were spinning. How can that be possible? The woman beside the officer spoke gently. Sometimes, during childbirth many years ago, mistakes happened. Joy felt fear creeping into her chest. Mistakes? Elizabeth looked pale now. What kind of mistakes? The officer answered carefully. In rare cases, babies were accidentally switched in hospitals. Joy felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. Switched? Elizabeth looked at the officer with wide eyes. Are you saying we might not be biological twins? The room became silent. Too silent. Joy stared at Elizabeth. Their identical faces suddenly felt strange and unfamiliar. The officer spoke slowly. I'm not making that claim yet. But the record suggests something is wrong. Elizabeth's hands trembled. This doesn't make sense. Joy's heart was pounding again. All this started because she wanted a job. But now something far bigger was unfolding. Something about their birth, something about their family. Elizabeth looked back at the screen. Can we confirm this information? The officer nodded. Yes. How? We will need to contact the hospital where the birth was registered. Joy felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. What if the record is correct? Elizabeth looked at her. What if we are not actually twins? Joy's chest tightened. If that were true, then everything she believed about her life would change. Everything. The officer stood up. I will request the full birth archive from the hospital. Elizabeth nodded slowly. Yes, please. Joy sat quietly. Her mind was racing with questions, but suddenly another thought appeared. Something strange. In something she had never questioned before. She looked at Elizabeth carefully. For the first time in her life, she wondered something. Are we really sisters? The officer turned toward the door. This investigation may take some time. Elizabeth nodded. We understand. But as the officer opened the door, a young assistant rushed down the hallway toward them. Sir, the officer stopped. What is it? The assistant held a tablet in his hand. I just received the hospital archive request. That was fast, the officer said. Yes, the assistant replied, but there's something strange. The officer frowned. What do you mean? The assistant turned the tablet so everyone could see. Joy leaned forward. Elizabeth did too. Then both sisters gasped at the same time. Because the hospital document showed something no one expected. Something that made the entire mystery even more terrifying. At the bottom of the birth record, there was another name listed. A second baby girl, born the same day. But the name was not Joy. And it was not Elizabeth. And the moment Elizabeth read that name, her hands started shaking because she recognized it. And what she whispered next sent fear through Joy's entire body. That name, Elizabeth said slowly, belongs to the woman who raised us. Elizabeth's hands trembled as she stared at the tablet. That name, she whispered again. Joy leaned closer. What name? She asked nervously. Elizabeth slowly pointed at the screen. Joy read the name. Then her eyes widened. Grace Okafor, their mother. Joy shook her head immediately. That doesn't make sense. Elizabeth looked just as confused. How can Mama's name be listed as a baby? The officer studied the document carefully. This record is from 30 years ago, he said. It shows 2 baby girls born on the same day. Joy swallowed. And, the officer scrolled down the screen, one baby girl was registered under the name Elizabeth. The second baby girl was registered under the name Grace. Joy frowned. But Grace is our mother. Elizabeth's breathing became heavy. Yes. The officer looked thoughtful, which means something in this record is wrong. Joy felt tension growing again. What could that mean? The woman beside the officer spoke gently. Sometimes old hospital records contain errors, but this type of error is unusual. Elizabeth suddenly said something quietly. What hospital is this record from? The officer checked the screen. Unity Maternity Clinic. Elizabeth froze. Joy noticed immediately. What is it? Elizabeth looked shaken. That hospital closed many years ago. The officer nodded. Yes. According to our records, it closed shortly after your birth. Joy felt her heart racing again. So the truth may never be found. The officer thought for a moment. Not necessarily. He turned to the assistant. Does the archive show the attending nurse or doctor? The assistant tapped on the tablet. Yes, there is a name. Everyone leaned closer. The assistant read slowly. Nurse Margaret Bellow. Elizabeth gasped softly. Joy looked confused. Why are you reacting like that? Elizabeth turned toward her slowly. Joy, do you remember Mama's old friend? Joy thought for a moment. You mean the elderly woman who visits sometimes? Yes. The one Mama always calls Auntie Maggie. Joy suddenly felt cold. Auntie Maggie. Elizabeth nodded slowly. Her real name is Margaret Bellow. The room fell silent. The officer looked surprised. You're saying the nurse who delivered the babies? Is someone your family still knows? Elizabeth nodded. Yes. Joy felt the pieces of the puzzle moving together, and suddenly, everything felt real. The officer leaned forward. This is important. If Nurse Bellow is still alive, she may be able to explain what happened. Joy's mind was spinning. For years they believed they were twins, but now, even that truth was uncertain. Elizabeth looked at Joy. Maybe this confusion started the day we were born. Joy nodded slowly. Maybe. The officer stood up. Would you be willing to speak with Nurse Bellow? Elizabeth answered immediately. Yes. Joy nodded too. Yes? The officer smiled slightly. Good. But before that, he paused, there is still the issue of the identity fraud. Joy felt shame rush through her again. She lowered her head. I understand. Elizabeth turned quickly. Please, she said to the officer, my sister made a mistake. She acted out of jealousy. But she is not a criminal. Joy felt tears fill her eyes again. Elizabeth continued, she has struggled for years feeling like she was not good enough. The officer listened quietly. Then he sighed. Our organization believes in integrity. Joy nodded slowly. I know. I am ready to accept whatever decision you make. The officer studied her face. You admitted the truth. That matters. Joy looked up slowly. But impersonating another person during employment verification cannot be ignored. Joy nodded again. I understand. The officer folded his arms. Therefore, the job offer will remain with the real applicant. Elizabeth looked surprised. You mean, I can still have the job? Yes. You earned it through your application. Elizabeth's eyes filled with relief. Thank you. Joy felt both happy and ashamed at the same time. Then the officer turned toward Joy again. As for you, Joy waited nervously. We will not pursue legal action. Joy's eyes widened. Really? Yes, but there will be consequences. Joy nodded. And I deserve them. The officer spoke clearly. You will be banned from applying to this organization for 5 years. Joy took a deep breath. That's fair. Elizabeth gently squeezed Joy's hand, but the officer was not finished. There is also something else. Joy looked up again. What? The officer smiled slightly. Your honesty today impressed us. Joy looked confused. My honesty? Yes. You admitted your mistake when you could have continued lying. Joy stayed silent. The officer continued. We run a different program for community outreach and training. Joy listened carefully. It helps young Nigerians develop professional skills. Joy's eyes widened. You mean training? Yes. It is not the prestigious job your sister earned, but it is an opportunity. Joy felt hope rising slowly inside her chest. For me? The officer nodded. Yes. Joy could hardly believe it. After everything she had done, she was still being given a second chance. Elizabeth smiled at her. See? Joy wiped her tears. Thank you, she whispered. The officer nodded. Just remember something. Joy looked up. Success cannot be stolen. It must be built. Joy nodded slowly. I understand now. Elizabeth hugged her gently. We will build our futures in our own ways. Joy smiled for the first time that day. For years she had tried to live someone else's life, but now she realized something important. Her life was still waiting for her. And maybe, just maybe, the truth about their birth would also change everything they believed about their family. But that was a mystery for another day. Because sometimes the unexpected does not destroy your life, Sometimes, it simply shows you the path you were meant to walk all along. Where are you watching from? Comment your city and country. What did this story teach you? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more inspiring emotional stories.